They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from someone who once kissed your forehead like a prayer. I used to believe that love, at its highest form, could never weaponize trust. That was before I found my name on a document I never signed, one that burned my life to the ground. My name is Camille Reed. I built my financial firm, Eden Cap, from nothing but smarts, sleepless nights, and a chipped old laptop in a Starbucks corner. I didn't inherit a legacy, I earned one, brick by brick, pitch by pitch, deal by deal. And when Eden Cap finally broke into the Forbes feature list, I wasn't alone. I had Jason. Jason was the man who made ambition look romantic, a corporate lawyer with an expensive watch and a voice made for verdicts. He was calm when I spiraled, charming when I doubted myself, and always one step ahead in boardrooms and bedrooms alike. I thought we were partners in business, in life, in legacy. He used to call me his golden ratio, said I balanced his chaos with my clarity. I should have known then. Chaos doesn't look for peace, it looks for cover. It started with an email, a bland subject line, urgent review, attached filing. From a name I didn't recognize, one of those vague government domain addresses that always make your stomach drop before you even open them. Inside a federal notice of investigation, I was being accused of misappropriating over $5 million in investor funds through Eden Cap. Fraud, embezzlement, falsified accounting. And at the bottom, signed in perfect ink, Camille R. Reed. I blinked, checked the date, checked the signature again. It was mine, my name, my cursive, but I had never touched that document. I remember the first time someone forged my signature. It was in third grade, my little brother faking a permission slip. This one felt no different, except now the paper came with subpoenas. I called Jason immediately. He answered on the second ring, breathless like he'd been expecting it. Camille, he said, don't panic. Don't panic. The federal government thought I was a white-collar criminal. Panic was all I had. Jason's voice was a mix of control and calculation. This is a misunderstanding. I'll call some people. We'll get ahead of it. I should have known. When a man says we during a fire, check if he's holding the match. The next 48 hours moved like a hurricane I wasn't invited to evacuate from. Investigators arrived at my office. They took my laptop, my phone, my personal hard drive. They asked if I recognized the transfer orders, if I remembered signing the asset shift. Every time, my answer was the same, no. And every time, they looked at me like I was either lying or tragically delusional. The media didn't wait for a conviction. My face was on every business blog, every LinkedIn thread, every whisper of financial gossip that swirled around Wall Street like blood in a shark tank. Jason stayed oddly silent. He stopped coming home, said he was staying downtown to manage optics. He didn't sleep beside me, didn't hold my hand when I had to appear for questioning. He sent me a lawyer instead, not his lawyer. A junior associate he barely introduced, a 26-year-old named Clark who called me Ms. Reed and didn't even know how to mute himself on Zoom. I didn't need a courtroom to feel the sentence. I was already being erased. The day they handcuffed me was sunny. Isn't it strange how life doesn't match the weather? You'd think your worst moments would come with thunder and biblical clouds. But no. The sky was blue. Birds chirped. The cuffs were cold. I remember the way the receptionist looked at me like she was watching a scandal. Not a tragedy. I remember the clicking of 100 iPhones as my walk of shame circled LinkedIn before I even got to the back seat of the patrol car. And I remember most clearly looking around that room and thinking Jason isn't here. He didn't even pretend to show up. No calls, no texts, not even a voicemail. The man who once kissed my temple after every presentation now couldn't be bothered to ask if I had a change of clothes. It wasn't until after I posted bail, thanks to my assistant Emily draining her own savings to help me, that I finally went to our home. Correction, his home. He changed the locks. When I called from outside the gate, Jason answered with a tone so smooth, it made my skin crawl. This isn't helping, Camille, he said. Just stay low. Let the process work. I asked him the only thing I cared about. Did you do this to me? Silence. Just breathing. Camille, he said eventually. You were always a bit careless with details. Maybe you made a mistake and just don't remember. That was it. That was the moment I knew. He wasn't confused. He wasn't scared. He was prepared. Jason framed me, not in a rush, not in passion, in cold, calculated, legal precision. That night, I sat on the cold tile of a motel bathroom, holding a copy of the document that started it all. It had my signature, but not my memory. So I did what I do best. I went looking, not for sympathy, not for help, for patterns, for loopholes, for cracks in his perfect little plan. Because if Jason thought this was over, he forgot who taught him how to win. I thought jail would be the lowest point. Turns out, it was just the lobby. The real prison was built with whispers. Brick by brick. Not from the state, but from the world I thought I ruled. The first morning I woke up with a criminal's face was the morning I realized what reputation really is. Not what you build, but what people choose to believe when it suits them. I watched my reflection in a gas station mirror, pale, bruised under the eyes. Mascara still dried on my cheek like ash. I looked like someone who'd done it, and that was all they needed. Eden Cap didn't wait for a verdict. By the end of that week, the board removed me from every decision-making channel. My inbox was frozen, my corporate card canceled, and the website rebranded. My face disappeared like I never existed. No former founder, no Camille's vision, just void. Jason said it was for optics. Optics. As if the ruin of my name was just a temporary blur on their brand. I kept expecting anyone to believe me. Emily did. My old assistant. But she had no power. The rest, the investors ghosted, the media crucified, and my so-called friends became LinkedIn neutral. But nothing stabbed deeper than the message from my mentor. Dana Walsh, I hope you find peace. Camille, whatever truth means to you now, whatever truth means to me, I didn't lie. I didn't steal. I didn't sell out my own company. Jason did. And he had the luxury of being credible. What no one tells you is how fast people rewrite their memories of you once they smell scandal. Suddenly I was too ambitious, cold, a little aggressive in meetings, as if somehow that justified a federal indictment. One podcast even ran a special on the Camille effect, dissecting the fall of women in finance who flew too close to the sun, as if I melted my own wings. The night the divorce papers arrived, I didn't even cry. There was no drama, no final argument, just an envelope slid under the door of the Airbnb I was renting under a fake name. Inside, a petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds: irreconcilable differences and potential financial damage to shared assets. He wrote that, Jason Reed, the man who toasted with me at our wedding to forever in empire, now protecting his empire from me. I remember staring at that signature, his name in perfect ink, and thinking how ironic it was. He signed this one for real, not like the other ones, not like mine. I hit bottom the day I saw him on television, Jason, sitting next to Audrey, my former accountant, now his apparent partner, on a panel about ethical finance in modern markets. Ethical. That word snapped something in me. I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just broken. I was activated. Because in that moment, watching him talk about restoring trust in the private sector with his snake oil smile and hand on Audrey's back, I understood something crystal clear. He thinks I'm finished. And that was his first real mistake. I stopped drinking wine that night, stopped scrolling Twitter, stopped replying to old friends who texted thinking of you without ever showing up. Instead, I started building something else. I bought a burner laptop. I subscribed to every public court database, financial filing, and archival record I could legally access. I spent hours in law libraries under a hoodie, reading about corporate fraud, forensic accounting, and most importantly, precedent. I wasn't a lawyer, but I was fluent in structure. Give me enough paper and enough silence, and I will rebuild anything. Jason forgot who I was before I loved him, before I kissed him at midnight deals, before I built his name into mine. He forgot I was the woman who used to write pitch decks in the back of a bus, who once turned 27 cents into a $50K investment because I refused to take no as currency. And most of all, he forgot that I listen, that I watch, that when I go quiet, it's not defeat, it's design. I found the first thread on week 3, a wire transfer between Eden Cap and a shell company called Veritas Bay Holdings, a name I'd never seen, but a company Audrey had signed into existence 4 months before my indictment. I followed the thread. Veritas Bay was registered in Nevada. Same address as a warehouse Jason's firm used for document storage. One of its board members, Jason's college roommate, disbarred in 2018 for document falsification. The second thread came from a USB drive Emily smuggled out of the Eden Cap archive. Inside email logs, timestamps, access history. Audrey had logged into my admin account using a backdoor I didn't know existed at 3:27 a.m. on the night before the falsified reports were submitted to the SEC. They weren't careless. They were just arrogant. I didn't scream, I didn't confront, I just kept pulling. For every lie Jason built, I found a record. For every signature he faked, I found a fingerprint. And for every smirk he flashed to the world, I drafted a bullet point in a silent war. It took me 3 months to build the file, another 2 to find the lawyer who'd believe me. Her name was Maya Chen, a former prosecutor who left the DA's office after watching one too many men walk free on reasonable doubt. Maya didn't say much when she read the file. She just nodded once and said, "Do not speak to anyone from this day forward, not even your shadow." I signed the retainer that night. In the silence that followed, I moved through the world like a shadow wearing heels, polite, invisible, patient. Jason had no idea what I was preparing. He was still out there giving speeches, still calling me a personal disappointment in closed-door conversations with investors, still posing in magazines with Audrey, talking about second chances and rebuilding trust. That was fine. He could have the spotlight, because I wasn't interested in clearing my name in the media. I was going to carve that into the courtroom wall. There's a freedom in being erased. When people stop watching, they stop guarding. And when they stop guarding, you start collecting. They thought I'd disappear into shame. They didn't know I was building something deeper than redemption. I was building precision. Quiet, methodical precision. I was the woman they forgot, and that was their mistake. Maya and I didn't work out of a glossy office or conference room. We met in borrowed spaces, coffee shops, old libraries, unused law firm backrooms that smelled like dust and printer ink. She taught me how to dissect a case file like a surgeon, what a forged email header looked like, how metadata could whisper what lies shouted over. Evidence, she said, isn't about emotion, it's about architecture. Build your case like a skyscraper foundation first. And I did. Every sleepless night was a blueprint. Every insult thrown at me became steel in the beams. I traced Jason's fraud through shell companies like a detective trapped in a spreadsheet. Veritas Bay Holdings, Marble Tree Investments, Windsor Equity LLC. Each name sounded legitimate, each one tied to a transfer, each transfer pulled from Eden Cap, each falsified with a signature that belonged to someone I used to be. It was financial laundering dressed in bespoke suits, and every single thread led back to Jason. He had used me as a firewall. He framed me to deflect the collapse he saw coming, the one he engineered. One night, around 2 a.m., I found myself staring at a folder of Jason's company assets. There it was, a recent merger deal valued at $28 million approved under my name. But I'd never signed that deal, never even seen it. It took me a moment to realize what that meant. It wasn't just character assassination. He was using my identity to continue growing the business until he could safely transfer it all. That deal had been made weeks after I was indicted. Jason wasn't done with me. He was still wearing me. Maya's voice rang in my ears. If they used your name while you were legally barred from transactions, we don't just have fraud, we have federal impersonation. That was the pivot. Not just financial fraud, criminal impersonation. And if proven, everything Jason touched with my name would be invalidated. Every contract, every deal, every asset, the man who stole my identity was about to watch it crumble beneath him. While Jason was out hosting networking galas, I became someone else, not Camille Reed, disgraced founder. I became my own forensic analyst, my own private investigator, my own echo in the room he never checked. At one event, Maya sent a law student undercover. Jason was overheard bragging about how some people just aren't built for pressure. He was sipping wine poured from my humiliation. I didn't need revenge to feel good. I needed control. I needed the system he trusted to collapse under its own paperwork. The deeper I went, the more reckless he became. He bought a lake house under an alias. He transferred $200K to a luxury home remodel through Audrey's consulting firm. He even filed a tax write-off under Eden Cap's name while I was still legally the CEO on record. He forgot something crucial. The law doesn't forgive ignorance when it comes with arrogance, and Jason Reed was walking through fire soaked in gasoline. I spent 6 weeks working with Maya on the motion. It wasn't just a response to the divorce or the fraud case, it was a counteroffensive. We filed a civil suit, a criminal complaint, and a petition for corporate reinstatement all in one blow. 3 separate jurisdictions, 3 separate charges. Jason wouldn't even see it coming. We timed the filings to hit simultaneously. I still remember the moment Maya hit submit on the last one. It was quiet. No explosion, no music. Just a soft click. That's how empires fall, I learned. Not with screams, with signatures. The silence after was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. For once, it wasn't humiliation that kept people from calling me. It was fear. Journalists started digging. One of Jason's junior associates quit and leaked internal memos. A board member at EdenCap contacted Maya in private, offering testimony in exchange for indemnity. Suddenly, people remembered my name again, not because they loved me, but because they realized I was dangerous when quiet. Jason's attorney reached out. He wanted to resolve matters privately. I told Maya to send them our terms: 1, full corporate confession; 2, 3, restoration of my stake; 4, 5, public apology; 6, they refused. Of course they did, because men like Jason never believe you'll take it all the way. They're used to noise. They don't know how to handle silence that strategizes. Then came the subpoena, federal court, EdenCap versus Jason Reed, fraud, forgery, impersonation. And this time I wouldn't be the one on trial. I wouldn't be the crying woman in a beige suit, begging a judge to believe her. I'd be the architect, the silent storm. 2 nights before the hearing, I stood in front of the mirror, not to rehearse, to remember. The woman I used to be, the one who pitched million-dollar deals without blinking, who fought for funding in male-dominated rooms, who built something real from a dream and a spreadsheet. She was back, no longer needing validation, no longer hoping someone would speak for her. She was about to walk into court and speak for herself. And the man who stole her name, he was about to learn what it meant to lose to the woman he tried to erase. People think courtrooms are loud. They imagine drama, shouting lawyers, gavel bangs echoing like thunder. But the real power doesn't come from noise. It comes from silence, the kind that makes your skin crawl, the kind right before a building collapses. That was the silence in the room the morning I walked in. Jason was already seated at the front, polished, calm, rehearsed. His hair slicked back, suit perfectly tailored, wedding ring long gone. Audrey sat behind him, lips pinched in that same nervous smirk I used to mistake for intelligence. They looked like they'd already won. I let them have that for 5 more minutes. I took my seat beside Maya. She didn't smile. She never did in court. Ready, she asked. I nodded. Not because I felt ready, but because I had nothing left to lose and everything to take back. Jason's team made this first move. Their opening was exactly what I expected: calm, calculated character assassination disguised as concern. Ms. Reed, though once a respected figure, his lawyer said with theatrical regret, has clearly suffered emotionally since the investigation. While we sympathize with her, we must protect our client's name and business from the fallout of her missteps. That's what he called being framed. Missteps. Like I tripped over $5 million and accidentally signed my own ruin. Jason kept his eyes on me. He wanted to see fear, but all he got was stillness. Then it was our turn. Maya stood. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Your Honor, she began, we intend to show that the defendant, Jason Reed, used forged documents, digital impersonation, and corporate theft to dismantle the professional and personal life of the plaintiff, Camille Reed, his wife at the time. This isn't a civil matter. It's calculated erasure. She clicked the first slide, and just like that, the avalanche began. Slide 1, the audit trail. A clear time-stamped log showing an access breach into my EdenCap account at 3:27 a.m., while I was logged into a hotel Wi-Fi 300 miles away. Slide 2. A comparison of my actual signature and the one used on the falsified wire transfers. Stroke width, pressure analysis, digital curve mapping, not just forged, copied, lifted from an old PDF, stretched, and dropped into new contracts. Slide 3, Audrey's email, forwarded internally. Subject line, use her template, she won't know. Dated 2 days before the SEC filing. Audrey's face went pale. Jason's smirk cracked just a little. Then came the video. Maya played it without a word. It was a recording from a corporate retreat Jason, a few drinks in, laughing with Eden Cap board members. Camille. Please. She never looked at the numbers. She just trusted people. That's the problem with visionaries, they don't read the fine print. Laughter, clinking glasses. The room fell silent when it ended. Jason shifted in his chair. For the first time that day, he looked small. Maya leaned into the silence. She brought out the contracts, the emails, the fake shell company registrations, the luxury properties Jason had purchased under companies Audrey managed, the federal impersonation charge tied to a post-indictment deal signed under my name. She didn't yell. She let the documents do the screaming. And when she was done, she turned to the judge and said, "The plaintiff didn't come here to ask for pity. She came here to prove the truth. Mr. Reed didn't just destroy her name. He used it. He profited from it. And now, he will face the consequences of underestimating the woman who built it." Jason's team scrambled to rebut, but the damage was done. Every time they tried to redirect, Maya had a file, a timestamp, a quiet bomb ready to detonate. By the afternoon session, the judge's patience had worn thin. "Mr. Reed," she said, "do you have any explanation for why your name appears on ownership documents of a firm registered under your wife's digital signature after her indictment?" Jason opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. Nothing. Audrey began to cry. And for once, the court reporter didn't bother to hide her smirk. By day's end, the judge called a recess. The courtroom emptied slowly. Jason remained seated. He didn't look at me this time, because now he knew. I hadn't come to prove my innocence. I'd come to expose his guilt. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, desperate for sound bites. But I said nothing. My victory didn't need headlines. It needed completion. That night, Maya and I met in the quiet of her office. She handed me a file. "This just came in." She said, "Jason's legal team is offering a full settlement plus asset return." I opened it. Everything was there. My company, my equity, my full name, restored to public record. But I didn't sign it. Not yet. Because I wanted something else first. The next morning, I walked into the offices of Jason's firm, now bleeding clients and under federal investigation. I requested a meeting with the executive board. They let me in out of fear, not respect. Fear works just fine. I laid out a buyout plan, not for revenge, for acquisition. I used Eden Cap's reinstated funds and partnered with 2 investors Jason once ignored. By the end of the hour, I didn't just own the company he tried to steal. I owned his. Back in court for the final ruling, the judge asked if I had any closing remarks. I stood, calm and clear. "Your Honor," I said, "the law may have taken time to catch up, but I never stopped building my case, not out of anger, but out of faith. Faith that the truth, once structured properly, becomes undeniable." Jason didn't look at me. He stared at his hands. I think he finally realized what it felt like to be invisible. When the gavel came down, it was soft, but to me, it sounded like a cathedral bell. Not justice, restoration. There's a particular silence that comes after the war ends. Not peace, no. Peace is soft. This is something else. It's the stillness of reclaiming your name and finding it intact. Burned, bruised, battle-scarred, but intact. The courtroom was behind me. Jason's empire lay in ruins, still smoking from the quiet fire I lit with documents and discipline. Now it was time for something else. Not victory, not applause, legacy. I signed the acquisition papers the next morning. Jason's company, Reed Strategic Advisory, was now officially under Eden Cap Holdings. And with a single signature, the man who tried to erase me was erased from the company registry himself. The receptionist didn't even blink when I walked into the office lobby. She handed me my visitor badge. I smiled, clipped it on, and stepped into the elevator of the building he once called his. The doors closed with a hiss. And for a brief moment, I could see my reflection in the stainless steel. I didn't look angry. I looked inevitable. The boardroom hadn't changed. Same marble table, same overpriced art on the walls, same chair at the head, the one Jason used to sit in like a throne. I pulled it out, sat down, and placed the Eden Cap acquisition binder in front of me. Audrey was already there, fidgeting like a child waiting for punishment. Her hair was different, softer, like she was trying to shed the past with highlights and mascara. "I didn't know everything," she whispered. "I know." I said, "It wasn't mercy. It was fact." I didn't need revenge. I needed clarity. And Audrey had already sentenced herself to a lifetime of regret. I didn't fire her. Not yet. But I transferred her to a compliance division in Montana remote, buried, and far from where real decisions are made. Jason called once, just once. No apology, no confession, just a raspy voice that said, "I guess you won." I didn't respond. He didn't deserve my words anymore. He had spent them all, each lie a theft of my voice, each forged deal a page torn from my story. Silence was the only punctuation I had left for him. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of a group of young female founders at a leadership summit in Chicago. They introduced me not as a cautionary tale, but as a keynote speaker. I told them this. They took my name. They wore it like a shield while stabbing me in the back. But a name isn't what they say. It's what you build word by word, contract by contract, truth by undeniable truth. They called me finished, but I was only getting structured. They stood, they clapped. But I wasn't there for applause. I was there for the girl in the back, wide eyes, silent, taking notes with trembling hands. She was me once, and I needed her to see what survival looks like when it grows into sovereignty. I rebranded Reed Strategic under a new name, Reedin, a fusion of our past and my rebirth. I left Jason's name in the middle, not out of tribute, but as a scar, visible, permanent. A reminder of what happens when you try to burn a woman who learned to rise from ashes. The logo was sharp, minimalist. The tagline read, "Built on truth, powered by resilience." For the launch event, I didn't invite the media. No photographers, just staff, people who survived the fallout, people who needed to see me at the front of the room again, not as a ghost, but as a general. I turned Jason's old office into a glass-walled mentoring space. No desk, just couches, books, a coffee machine, and a wall lined with quotes from women who'd rebuilt what was stolen. I hosted sessions every month, not panels, conversations. Sometimes we talked contracts, other times we talked about the wounds that don't show up in spreadsheets. I told them power isn't loud. Power is knowing your silence can clear a room. And your name once stolen can become the brand they'll never forget. 6 months after the final ruling, I received a letter from the very judge who presided over my case. It was brief, just a note. "Ms. Reed, your case reminded me why I chose law. Thank you for not giving up. Most don't realize that justice isn't loud, it's patient, and you redefined the meaning of testimony. With respect, Margaret Eldridge." I stared at it for a long time, not because I needed validation, but because I finally understood I didn't win because I fought louder. I won because I outlasted them. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine was never revenge. Mine was architecture. And every beam they tried to tear down, every bolt they loosened, every floor they cracked, I used to rebuild something indestructible. My name, not just restored, re-engineered.